Well, hello there and welcome back to another video in my 2021 review series. Fina here from Fina Reads, and I'm super excited to talk with you about my most surprising reads of 2021. And that is a good mix of genres, specific books, authors, just things where I didn't expect what I was getting at the end of the day. Where I didn't expect to react the way I did. And I put together 5 things for you that I want to talk through in this video and explain a little bit why I think I was so surprised. Let's just get started. And I want to start with classic sci-fi as a genre or a category. I did not expect that I would enjoy reading classic sci-fi as much as I did. And the reason for that is when I used to think about classic sci-fi, I was thinking about really boring, kind of stiff, dense books that have a lot of technical explanation and a bunch of math in it, and I don't know, something like that. Just dry, boring, spider webs and dust pouring out. That's what I was expecting. And I don't think I could have been more wrong in that regards at all. I read 3 different considered classic sci-fi books. 2 of them I really enjoyed. One was really weird, but not dusty spiderweb weird. It was just weird and it didn't really sit with me very well. It was kind of quirky. And that was To Android's Dream of Electric Sheep. I read that back in December and it was just weird. Let's just leave it as that. But I also read Foundation, the first trilogy, and Dune Messiah. I did not expect that I would love this as much as I did. It was the complete opposite of what I thought classic sci-fi is. And I don't know why I had this thought. I don't know why I had this misconception about classic sci-fi. But these are neither dusty nor full of Foundation is a little bit, but not really bad. Not the way I thought it would be. So what I really enjoyed about Dune is really that whole political intrigue stuff. The exploration of Arrakis, learning that good is not always good and that there are always layers to the truth. And that's what Dune and Dune Messiah did a really good job in exploring, and I definitely want to continue this with the series. And then for Foundation, that was a total surprise. I know my dad kept telling me when I was younger, he kept telling me about reading this and that even the iRobot series, that they're fantastic and that he loved them as a teenager and whatnot. And again, I don't know why, but I thought it would be incredibly boring, full of technical details and equations and whatnot, and it was really not. It was such a fantastic, mind-blowing story that I still not believe that I read what I read. I ended the trilogy and I was sitting there contemplating my life choices and I was just blown away by it. And I definitely want to continue with this series, read the rest of the actual Foundation series, but then also the tie-ins of the iRobot and the Empire series. The second most surprising thing that I want to talk with you about is also a genre, and that would be horror. And I'm just holding 2 books up that I read this year in that category as a representation of the, 8 books I think that I read in that category. And one of those was Stephen King's Carrie. I like reading Stephen King, and I've read Stephen King for years and years, but I always stayed away from his more horror categorized books because I'm a wimp. Let's face it. I am a scaredy cat. I don't watch horror movies. I don't want scary situations. I don't go to, Disney's horror or whatnot. I did it once and I about died in that house. I read Carrie and I loved it. I felt for her mother. I just wanted to, oh my goodness, that poor girl that she had to grow up with this mother. Unbelievable. And it was a typical great King writing and I really enjoyed it. And then the other one, again, I read other authors and a lot more things, but just to highlight some of those, another author that I discovered thanks to Jake from the Bookish Drummer is Zoe Stage, and I've read all 3 books from her. This is my number 2, Baby Teeth is number 1. If you've watched my top 1 of the different categories video, you've heard me talk about Baby Teeth already. And then Getaway is my least favorite from her. All 3 of them were fantastic. Phenomenal, incredible, mind-blowing, so much fun to read, and not what I would expect horror to be. I think, again, I will stay away from like jump scare type horror, but this is more I'm messing with your head on a psychological level type horror. I want more. I want more of that stuff. Seriously. And I think the reason why I enjoy some of the horrors actually really well is because I realized how close some of them are either to the thriller genre that I already also really loved, or even the fantasy area, and I like both. So it seems like a natural next step to go to read more about horror. Talking about horror and fantasy mix-ups, dark fairy tales is something that I also discovered for myself. And they don't always have to be really dark, but these are 3 books that I read that kind of for me fall into that category. The Ocean at the End of the Lane being the darkest one of the 3 that I read. I mean, that was just plain weird. There's so much stuff happening in this book where I was just sitting there like, what now? But it was good. It was really weird in a good sense. The little boy, the main character here, that interacts with the women from the ocean at the end of the lake, it was just so imaginative. And I never thought that this is what Neil Gaiman is all about. And it was my first Gaiman book that I read too. And I'm definitely really excited to read his other books, especially the ones that are not as known. I know American Gods and Good Omen are rather popular, but I want to read his other ones. Stardust being one of the next, which I also know is more of a fairy tale type retelling. But then also Bear and the Nightingale, which is a bit darker Russian folklore inspired fairy tale. It's not a retelling, but it's written like a fairy tale. The prose sounds like a fairy tale. And then the other one is Beast and Beauty, Dangerous Tales. Not all of them are dark. They're inspired by mainly Grimm fairy tales. There are some others in here as well. But they are moved into today's century. And they have some of the darker aspects that fairy tales have, but they're not purposefully made dark like Ocean at the End of the Lane. They're still dark because they're now aligned with things that we know from today. Anyway, dark fairy tale category, definitely something that I really enjoyed in 2021 and that I was really surprised about learning about myself, that I enjoy it as much as I did. If you have any recommendations on those type of books, dark fairy tales, please put them down in the comments. I definitely need to read more of that category. Surprise number 4 for me was an actual series, or at least the first 2 books of a series. And that was a good and a bad surprise at the same time. And I'm specifically talking about The Shadows of the Abt. And I'm holding book 1 and 2 up because those are the 2 that I read in 2021. I discovered this series long before it was a big thing on BookTube due to Ellen's read-along. And I'm not saying that in a negative way or to say like, hey, I was hip before everybody else discovered it. Not at all. In 2020, I read Children of Time by Adrian Tchaikovsky, and I loved it so much that I researched the author and bought a bunch of his books, and then for whatever reason, never read them. And then I picked them up with Library of Alexandria's read-along. So I read Empire in Black and Gold, and I was like, why did I not read this series earlier? This is incredible. The world setup, the discussion about the different races, the magic system, everything is fantastic. And, I even started tabbing things, which I never do or really rarely do on especially on fiction books. And I was so amazed by that story that I continued with book 2. And then as you see, the sign is still in here, that I then stopped reading after about 200 pages because, man, was I bored by this. I started skimming pages. I basically fell asleep. It was bright daylight, and I fell asleep. It was so boring. Then I started talking with all those people who did the read-along with Ellen, and they said, yeah, book 2 is more aligned to what that series really is. And I was like, how is this possible that book 1 on a series is so entertaining, has so much development, and basically creates such an amazing world for book 2, and then 3 and 4 are supposed to be very similar to book 2 for the books then to meander the way they did. I know a lot of the folks that did the read-along actually really enjoyed 2, 3, and 4. For me, it was just not a thing because it's war and sieges one after another. And that's essentially what it is. And that's what it continues being in book 2 and 3. And pretty much everyone told me, like, no, if you didn't like the first 200 pages, it will continue exactly like that till book 4. So, you're fine if you're DNFing it. And I was like, okay, I'm DNFing this. And my last surprise that I want to talk about is The Lunar Chronicles, which is a YA sci-fi that is actually also a fairy tale retelling, but not a dark fairy tale retelling, which is why it's not in the other category. But I'm just now realizing that I have 2 fairy tale topics in here. Anyway, it doesn't matter. And the reason why I'm saying this is, first of all, it is sci-fi, which is also still kind of new to me, even though I'm reading it for over a year now. I wanted to explore more YA-related sci-fi, and I didn't realize how much fun they can be, and this one was definitely one of those. And then also, that fairy tale retelling, it was incredible. I thought it would be totally cheesy, you know, when I picked them up, and I actually picked them up because of a recommendation from a friend. She loved them entirely, and it turned out it really wasn't. It was actually pretty high, and it was one of those that I actually considered for my top 5, but then others were just better. But this series is so imaginative, and I had the best time reading it. Although book 4, I have to say, really flopped in my opinion. It was just too long. If Marissa Meyer, the author, would have cut it in half or just 2/3 of the actual length and had one less, you know, ooh, something is happening, oh, we solved it. Ooh, something is happening, oh, we solved it. You know, one less of those arcs, it would have been perfect. This was such a fun ride, and I had the best time with this series. I pretty much binged the whole thing early in 2021. And if you're looking for the highly entertaining YA sci-fi that is written incredibly well, I really love the dialogues, I really like the prose, that is easy to follow along with, but still complex, with characters that have a lot of depth and experience a real character growth across the series, I can highly recommend Lunar Chronicles. And then just what she did with the fairy tales. I mean, Cinderella is a cyborg. Rapunzel is stuck in a satellite instead of stuck in a high tower. And it's just, I had a blast with this. This was so creative. I really enjoyed it. Just keep in mind, it is considered YA, and it truly is a bit younger writing, but it is very entertaining. It's not immature characters. It's not super young writing. I would actually consider it on the, you know, older side of YA. Yes, you have your typical love story, of course, as part of that, but hey, sometimes you need it, and sometimes those are fun. And this one in particular is a lot of fun. And then if you really enjoyed it, there's one novella and one short story collection as part of that as well. So just in case, you know, it keeps you entertained for quite some time. That's the 5 things that really surprised me this year, that showed me who I actually am as a reader, and topics I enjoy, genres I enjoy, things that I didn't think I would like, and then also things that I thought I would like a lot more and didn't, which is okay. There's one more video to come in my 2021 review series, so definitely hit the subscribe button if you don't want to miss it. It's about 2021 releases and all the ones that I read in the fantasy and sci-fi genre. With that, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you soon with my next video. Bye!